All right. All right, let's start in another few seconds here. All right, we are live and rolling. So the next talk is Hacking the Samurai Spirit by Isaac Mathis. Isaac flew in here all the way from Japan just to give this talk, so everybody give him a big hand. And for our listening pleasure, he's going to be delivering this talk in English.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Cool, good evening. My name is Isaac Mathis. The title of my presentation is called Hacking the Samurai Okay, I'll hold the mic. The title of my presentation is called Hacking the Samurai Spirit. I figured if I named it something as cool as this, they wouldn't deny my presentation, and it worked. I had about an hour's worth of material, but unfortunately I had to cut about half of it. So I'd still like to cover as much material as possible, so please bear with me as I'm going to go really fast and just blow you away with information for the next 20 minutes. As a disclaimer, I don't claim that anything I present is 100% accurate or anywhere near that, and there's probably disputable things. I'm going to have to make many generalizations. All X people are like this, all Y people are like that. Please be aware that generalizations only have so much truth to them, and it's easy to play devil's advocate. But what about this? Yes, I probably already know. I'm only making these broad generalizations to get a point across. So please bear with me and take everything with a grain of salt. And please hold your questions to the end so that I can get through this in time. So first off, who am I? I'm a nobody. I don't do anything special. I've been earnestly studying computer security in Japanese for about 13 years, since I was about 11 or so. During the day, I work for the Hyogo Institute of Information Education Foundation, which is part of Carnegie Mellon Scilab Japan. At night, I lead the security solutions for a Japanese company in Kobe, doing mostly web application security now. I don't consider myself good at either, but I know a little bit of both. Hopefully I can share some of my little knowledge with you today. So what is this presentation about? Today I would like to talk about something that most people do not talk about or even consciously analyze maybe, the 9th layer of the OSI model. So here we have the OSI model. At layer 7 we have applications, and who uses applications? People, right? And what's a big influence on human behavior? Culture. So in other words, most Americans act and think American, because everyone around you is American. Most Japanese act Japanesu because, everyone around them is Japanese. You probably get the idea. So why should you care about other people around the globe? First, because the internet is a worldwide phenomenon, not countrywide. Usually not only one person has all the right answers to everything, so knowing what is out there and how other people are trying to solve the same problems could be essential to finding the best solution. 3, people act completely different according to their culture and environment, so you can't hack layer 8 before you can hack layer 9. Now if you're an American working in America and will never interact with the outside world, you already understand layer 9, so you don't have to worry about anything. However, this world is getting more and more global and united, and probably most of you will work with information security on a global scale, if not already. And if you have any experience abroad, you'll know that the culture barrier is usually the hardest firewall to break through. And finally, it's fun to talk about, or at least I think so, so I hope you'll find this interesting. So let's get this started. So I don't mean to offend anybody, but I don't believe Japanese make good hackers in the true sense of the word hacker. The whole society is taught from birth to think inside the box. This buffer only holds 20 bytes. Why would I ever think of putting anything more in there kind of mentality? Taught by proverbs like the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. So while Americans naturally all strive to be individuals and different just for the sake of being different, the Japanese do the exact opposite, which kind of goes against the natural hacker instinct, right? Also, most Japanese are very ethical and will do everything in their power to follow the rules, no matter how silly or pointless they might be. So for these and probably many other reasons, most Japanese aren't even interested in being hackers. So in the traditional sense of the word hacker, Japanese may not be the best, but in a more broad sense of hacking, there are some things that Japanese naturally do great. That is not inventing, but innovating. So Japan has just spent the past 2,000 years taking everything from China, you know, the writing systems, religion, philosophy, art, etc., making it Japanese, and usually innovating it to the next level. So today they're doing the same thing, but on a global scale. So cars, robots, electronics, cell phones, etc., did not originate in Japan, but they make some of the best in the world today, right? They even innovated the smiley face to the next level. So you know how in the US we have these 4 or 5 different smiley faces, the happy face, the sad face, the sticking out the tongue face, which I can never tell is, you know, a good thing or a bad thing. Well, in Japan we have about 30 or 40 different smiley faces, you know, covering virtually any emotion possible. And the best part is, you know, you don't have to turn your head 90 degrees to figure out what's going on. Japanese are also all about the efficiency. It's even built into their language. So if there's a word with more than 4 syllables that's used frequently, saying it will be considered cumbersome, and an abbreviation will usually be created, such as digital camera is digikame, word processor, wapro, presentation, plezen, and copy and paste, copy-paste. So if there's a contest to see who can push the most data through a certain link, or who can write the smallest shellcode for a given task, you know, the Japanese would probably dominate in this area. Finally, Japanese are extremely hard workers. They actually work too hard. And a lot of the time, you know, if you bang your head against something long enough, it'll eventually break, right? So there are people finding 0 day in Japan. They just keep very quiet about it. They don't post a full disclosure. So even other Japanese don't really know what their neighbor's up to. So although some people might have the image that Japanese are far advanced when it comes to the internet, it still doesn't apply much to the common users. So most Japanese still don't start using computers until college. And since everyone has internet connectivity on their cell phone and can do whatever they want, you know, send email, check the news, download music, whatever, many people do not even see a need to use a computer. As the internet and security industry originate from the US, it's natural that these things take a while to reach Japan. But things are getting better as information flows faster. So the Japanese do not have the same security mindset that most Westerners possess. There isn't even a word that translates right for security, so they use the English word security. The only words that translate somewhat are anzen or anshin, meaning safe or relieved, which is kind of different, right? But this too is changing, and more people are catching on. Privacy is a big issue in Japan, and many people care much about it, whether they realize it or not. The Personal Information Privacy Law was enacted in 2005 as a reaction to a couple very large companies screwing up and leaking personal information on a couple million of their customers. This enactment has highly affected Japanese companies, as now if they leak any personal information, you know, an email address, a phone number, whatever, they get hit very hard with fines, and not to mention they lose their reputation, as this all gets highly publicized by the media. And in Japan, reputation means a lot. So leaking personal information is by far the biggest fear of Japanese companies. However, if you're on the selling side of security, it makes a great point for selling security. So laws in Japan are getting stricter as security incidents rise and people get upset. However, things have just started, and there's still many loopholes and confusion out there, such as stealing intangible objects is not a crime in Japan. And guess what information is? Intangible, right? So if you steal data from your company using one of their USB thumb drives, you can get in trouble because the USB thumb drive is tangible. But if you use your own USB thumb drive, then you're pretty much free to take whatever you want. There are still no laws against creating viruses, which I'll talk about later. Until about 6 months ago, it was legal to record new movies at the cinemas. Of course, publishing the movies on the net was still considered copyright infringement, but all you'd have to do was say you're recording the movie for personal use, and everything would be fine. Finally, there's no fair use in Japan, which results in some interesting things, but unfortunately I don't have time to elaborate.